My name is Laura. I am 29. And a few nights ago, my own mother put her hands on my desk and literally shoved it away from the wall so my brother could move his camera in. She did not yell. She did not ask. She just said it like a decision that had already been signed and stamped. We are giving this room to him for his studio. You can work in the basement. My brother was leaning in the doorway, arms folded, watching my monitors go dark like it was a show. He smirked and added, "You will be fine down there, right? Less distraction." He said it like a joke, but he meant every word. That room was my office, the space I had built piece by piece so I could work remote as a designer and actually pay the bills that kept this house running. I just stared at him, then at her, and all I managed to say was, "Okay, no yelling, no scene." I packed my laptop, my hard drive, and a few things I could carry in one trip. I walked past them, straight down the stairs, like I was going to the basement just like they wanted. They had no idea that when I said, "Okay," what I really meant was, "I am done." That night, I moved out silently. I changed more than just where my desk was, and the very next morning, the calls started, then the texts, "We cannot afford this without you. Please pick up." They called me nonstop, like suddenly I was the only person in the world who knew how to keep their lives from falling apart. If you have ever wondered what happens when the person your family takes for granted finally walks away, stay with me. Because the way they begged me to come back might make you rethink how much you let people use you. Growing up, I always knew my family was a little lopsided, but I did not realize how bad it was until money got involved. I was the kid who stayed up late finishing projects, who color-coded notes, who actually cared about grades. Ethan, my younger brother, was the one everyone said was sensitive and creative, which apparently meant the rules just bent around him. When I got into a good design program on a scholarship, my mom, Lynn, gave me a quick hug in the kitchen and said, "That is great. Honey. You always were responsible." When Ethan passed an online class he barely did the assignments for, she ordered a custom cake from the bakery down the street and posted about it on Facebook like he had cured a disease. I learned early not to expect confetti when I did something right. After college, when rent in Manhattan was basically $3,000 a month for a closet with a sink, moving back home to our place in Brooklyn felt like the only financially sane choice. I told myself it would be temporary, just until I built up some savings from my UX job and freelance work. What actually happened was I slid into this role as the household's unofficial bank, tech support, and problem solver. And nobody even noticed the shift. But me. It started small. Mom's paycheck was short 1 month, and the electric bill was higher than usual, so I covered it. Then the Wi-Fi got upgraded so Ethan could stream better without lag. And somehow the new plan ended up on my card. Then the Netflix, the Spotify, the shared phone plan, the extra groceries for all the takeout nights we justified as family time. I told myself, it is fine. I make more. This is what you do when you love people. But every time my car auto-renewed some subscription, none of them would survive a week without. I felt the tiny twist in my chest. When Ethan decided he was going to be a content creator, Mom said it like she was announcing a career path, not a whim. "He needs a little push," she said. "He has potential. He just needs support." Support meant I paid $600 for a TikTok creator course he never finished. Support meant I ordered him ring lights and phone tripods from Amazon for the channel. Support meant I woke up at 2 in the morning to fix the internet when it cut out during his late-night gaming streams because he was testing setups. Meanwhile, my own work, the work that actually brought money in, happened quietly in the background. I turned that little room on the top floor into a real office because nobody else cared about it. I spent my own savings on a proper desk, an ergonomic chair, a second monitor, a drawing tablet, and warm lighting so I didn't look half dead on client calls. I pinned wireframes to the walls, scribbled notes on sticky pads, and build an actual career in that space. That office was the difference between me barely scraping by and me landing bigger contracts, raises, better clients. But whenever Mom talked about it, she said, "Lauren is lucky she can work from home. Lucky," as if it all just fell into my lap. And I didn't drag myself to get there. At the same time, she talked about Ethan like he was one viral video away from changing all our lives. She never once asked how many hours I spent iterating on an interface or fixing bugs someone else ignored. Nor she only noticed when a bill was due, and somehow, miraculously, it got paid. I had this running tally in my notes app, just for myself. Rent I handed her each month, utilities I covered when she was short, subscriptions I forgot I signed up for because everybody used them, groceries, takeout, Ubers for her when she didn't feel like taking the subway, Ubers for Ethan when he had some half-baked job interview he never went to. Every time I updated that list, the number at the bottom got uglier. My mom kept calling it family helping family. I started calling it me quietly bleeding money so they could pretend everything was fine. The worst part was that they truly believed they were the ones struggling the most. Ethan would sigh about how hard it was to make it as a creator. While sitting in the room I paid to he and scrolling through sneakers he wanted, Mom would complain about prices going up, and I would bite my tongue instead of pointing out that my name was on half the accounts that kept her life comfortable. I knew, logically, that I had allowed this to build. I said yes to many times. I stepped in before they ever had to feel the consequences of their own choices. I smoothed every sharp edge. And because I kept doing it, they assumed I always would. That was the dynamic. That was the script. Lauren will handle it. Lauren will pay it. Lauren will fix it. I just never expected they would shove me out of the very room that made all of that possible. The night my mom pushed me out of my own office, something in me finally stopped making excuses for them and started asking the one question I had avoided for years. What would actually happen if I didn't handle it this time? That question would not leave me alone. It followed me into the shower, into my dreams, into the quiet moments between meetings, when my camera was off and my smile dropped. What would actually happen if I didn't fix it this time? That night after my mom told me to take the basement, I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, my laptop open, but my Figma files untouched. Instead, I opened Zillow. I typed in Queens, studio, max price, and hit search like I was just window shopping. I told myself I was only curious. The rent numbers still made my stomach clench. But for the first time, they did not feel completely impossible. I had savings, not a fortune, but enough. I scrolled past dark, depressing boxes and sketchy listings until one caught my eye, a small studio in a quiet part of Queens with a big window facing the street and just enough wall space for a desk and shelves. The pictures showed sunlight on hardwood floors and a tiny kitchen with white cabinets. It was nothing fancy, but as I swiped through the photos, I could already see where my monitor would go, where I would tape up my wireframes, where I would put a plant, and pretend I was the kind of person who remembered to water it. I checked the price 3 times, $3,200 a month. High, but not unthinkable when I added up what I made and what I would stop bleeding out on everyone else. I stared at the total in my notes app, the one tracking what I had poured into this house, and realized that in 1 year, I had already paid the equivalent of several months of that studio, but had nothing to show for it that actually belonged to me. The next morning, I told Mom I had an early meeting at a client office in Queens. Technically, it was not a lie. Someone there was about to decide my future. I took the train, clutching a folder with my pay stubs and ID, my heart pounding like I was going to an interview, when the landlord, an older woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense voice, opened the door. The place was even smaller than it looked online, but it was clean, it was quiet, and most importantly, it was mine if I wanted it. We sat at the tiny counter that passed for a dining table while she went over the lease. You work from home? She asked. I nodded. Ex-designer. I just need good internet and a place to put a desk. She nodded like that made sense. We do not tolerate parties, she said. No loud music, no drama. I almost laughed. That is exactly what I am trying to get away from. When she slid the lease over, my hand shook for a second. My brain threw every fear at me at once. What if your work dries up? What if this is irresponsible? What if your family hates you? Then another thought cut through all of that. They already treat you like you owe them your whole life. And they still did not hesitate to push you out. I signed. I transferred the first month and the deposit. $6,600 disappearing from my account in one click. It hurt, but it also felt clean. This was not like throwing money into a bottomless pit of bills and excuses. This was building something for me. On the train ride back to Brooklyn, I kept touching the new key in my pocket, the little square of metal that meant I finally had a way out. When I walked in the door, Ethan was on the couch, shutting into his headset at some game, plates from last night's takeout still on the coffee table. Mom was at the kitchen counter scrolling on her phone, complaining under her breath about the price of groceries. Nobody asked how my client meeting went. Nobody noticed the shift. That was fine. It actually made what I did next easier. I started small. That night, when they asked what we should order for dinner, I said I already ate. The next day, when Mom texted me to add some things to the grocery delivery, I replied, I cannot cover extra this week. My budget is tight. It was the first time I had said no in years. There was a pause, then just a thumbs up emoji. The Wi-Fi glitched during one of Ethan's streams, and he pounded up the stairs to my office. Or what was still technically my office for a few more days. Hey, Lauren, can you reset the router? It is doing that thing again. I looked at my screen, at the prototype I was testing. At the time, I have a deadline, I said without looking away. You can figure it out. He stood there for a second like he had never heard those words from me before. Eventually, he muttered something and stumped back down. The world did not end. A couple of nights later, when Mom mentioned needing an Uber for an early shift because she did not want to deal with the subway, I told her I could not put it on my account this time. Maybe ask Ethan or take the train. She gave me a look like I had just spoken another language. Are you okay? She asked. You always help. I forced a smile. I am just trying to be smarter with my money. It sounded so casual out loud, but inside it felt like ripping up an old script. Every no I said made it a little easier to say the next one. Behind the scenes, I started moving pieces of my life out of that house. The first thing that left was my external hard drive with all my client files, then my sketchbooks, my favorite pens, a stack of clothes I could fit into a duffel bag. I told them I was decluttering, taking things to a storage unit, dropping stuff at a friend's place. None of it was technically a lie. The storage unit just happened to be my new studio apartment. I would finish my last meeting of the day, close my laptop, and then slide it into my backpack instead of leaving it on the desk. I took my monitor down one weekend under the excuse that it was acting weird and I wanted to get it checked. Little by little, my office became less my space and more just a room. They were to focus on Ethan's next idea for his channel and Mom's overtime schedule to notice how empty the shelves were getting. At night, after they went to bed, I would make quiet trips to Queens, carrying boxes down the stairs one load at a time so the old steps would not creak too much. Every time I unlocked that new door and stepped into the silent studio, I felt my lungs open a little wider. I would set a box down, look around at the bare walls and the echo of my footsteps and think, this is where I stop being the person who fixes everything for everyone else first. I had not told them I was leaving yet. I wanted my exit ready before I said the words. If my mom could decide I no longer had a right to the space that funded their life in a single conversation at their dinner table, then I could decide in silence. that I was done funding it off by the time they officially turned my old office into Ethan's studio, with his cheap ring light and sneaker boxes stacked in the corner. Almost everything that mattered to me was already gone. What they were really pushing out was not just a desk. It was the last piece of leverage they had without even knowing it. It all really snapped a couple of weeks later. By then, most of my important stuff was already in Queens, but I was still sleeping in my old room, still pretending nothing had changed. One Saturday afternoon, I came home from grabbing a coffee and noticed something felt off when I walked past the door of what used to be my office. The room was open, lights spilling in, Ethan's voice drifting out as he talked to his phone, testing angles. I stepped inside and my eyes went straight to the empty spot where my ergonomic chair used to be. The cheap folding chair from the basement was there instead, wobbling under Ethan as he adjusted his tripod. My stomach dropped. "Hey, where is my chair?" I asked, even though I already knew I was not going to like the answer. Ethan barely glanced back. "Mom sold it," he said we needed the money for my mic. The words hit harder than I expected. I turned, walked straight to the kitchen, and found Mom rinsing dishes like it was any other day. "Where is my chair?" I repeated. She did not even look up at first. "Oh, that," she said. "I listed it on Facebook Marketplace. We got $3.50 for it." Ethan really needed a proper microphone if he is going to take this seriously. "We will get you something else for the basement. Your old one was overkill anyway." I just stared at her. That chair was not some random piece of furniture. I bought that with my bonus when my team shipped a big feature. I picked it out after weeks of back pain, sitting in it on the showroom floor while imagining myself finally working like an actual professional instead of hunched over a kitchen table. "You sold it," I said slowly. Without asking me, she shrugged, finally meeting my eyes with this annoying mix of confusion and annoyance. Like I was the unreasonable one. "Lauren, it is just a chair. We share things in this house. We needed money. Ethan needed equipment. You can sit on literally anything and work. You are young, you will be fine." Something inside me went very, very quiet in that moment. For years, I had tried to explain my side, to justify my spending, to gently remind them what I contributed. It never stuck. But standing there, listening to my mom talk about a chair I bought with my own paycheck like it was just community property she could cash out for Ethan's next hobby purchase, I realized talking was done. "You did not share it," I said. "You sold it, and you did not need money. You needed my money." Again, her jaw tightened. "Do not start, Lauren," she warned. "We are all under pressure right now. You know how expensive everything is. And Ethan is trying to build something. He needs support." There it was again, that word, support, always flowing one way. I nodded slowly. "You are right," I said. "Everything is expensive. That is why some of us have been paying more than our share for years." Her eyes narrowed. "What is that supposed to mean?" I walked over to the counter, grabbed my phone, and opened the notes I had been updating for months. I scrolled, turned the screen toward her. "This is what I mean. Rent, utilities, groceries, subscriptions, Ubers, Ethan's course, his gear, half the stuff you do not even remember asking me to cover." I watched her eyes dart over the numbers, her mouth pressing into a thin line. "That cannot be right," she said. "Weekly, that is exaggerated. The totals are insane." Things were tight, but not that tight. I tapped the screen. Screenshots, bank statements, receipts. It is all there. You can look at every line if you want. Ethan wandered into the doorway halfway through this, a controller still in his hand. "What is going on?" he asked. "Is this about the chair, Mom? I told you she would freak out. She is so dramatic about everything." I turned to him. "You think I am being dramatic? You sold my chair so you could buy a microphone for your TikTok videos. A microphone I am sure you expect me to help pay for when something goes wrong with the order." He rolled his eyes. "Relax. It is not that deep. We are family. We share. That office was just a room. You act like you built a hospital in there." A laugh escaped me, sharp and humorless. You are right, I said. It was just a room where I work the job that has been keeping this family afloat. While you play influencer and mom pretends we can afford everything because magic money appears. Every month. Mom stepped in quickly, her voice rising. That is enough, Lauren. You are being disrespectful. We are all just doing our best. Ethan is trying to find his path. You have always been the responsible one. You can handle more. That is just how it is. There it was, the script. You can handle more. Translation, you will handle more because we do not want to. I felt my face go cold. No, I said. That is how it used to be. She frowned. What are you talking about? I slipped my phone into my pocket. Suddenly done with this entire conversation. I am talking about the fact that I am moving out this weekend. The room went completely still. For a second, I thought maybe they had not heard me. Then Mom laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. Do not be ridiculous. You cannot just move out. Where would you even go? You know how expensive rent is? You are not thinking straight. Ethan snorted. Sure you are, he muttered. You are mad about a chair in a room. So you are going to run away and make everything worse. I looked between them, feeling strangely calm. You pushed me out of my office without a second thought. I said, you sold my furniture without asking. You took my money, my time, my energy. Like it was owed. And you never once stopped to think, what would happen if I stopped giving it? I have somewhere to go. I have a lease. I moved my bed and the rest of my stuff out on Saturday. Mom's face went through disbelief, anger, and something that looked almost like fear. You cannot do this to us, she said quietly. We need you here. You help with everything. You know we depend on you. I nodded. I know. That is why I am doing it. Because as long as I am here, nothing changes. Ethan scoffed. You are just trying to punish us. You will come back. You always do. Maybe that had been true in the past. Not this time. I walked past them, went up to my room, and closed the door before they could say anything else. I sat on the edge of my bed, opened my phone, and pulled up the U-Haul app. My thumb hovered over the screen for half a second. Then I picked the date, the time, the truck size I needed. When the confirmation came through, I felt this strange mix of terror and relief wash over me. Downstairs, I could hear Mom and Ethan arguing in low voices, the words muffled by the floorboards. For once, I did not strain to make them out. They had made their decision the second they chose his ring light over my chair, his studio over my office. I was just finally making mine. Saturday came faster than I expected. All week, Mom acted like my announcement had been a heat-of-the-moment outburst. She kept saying things like, once you cool off, we will talk about rearranging the basement, or we can get you a new chair. Eventually, as if buying me a used office chair would erase the fact that she sold the one I loved without asking. Ethan mostly avoided me, except for a few passive-aggressive comments about how I was really going to screw everyone over. Because I caught feelings about furniture, I did not explain myself again. I just worked, packed, and watched the clock. On Saturday morning, the U-Haul pulled up in front of the house right on time, the orange logo bright against our block of old brick fronts. I stood on the sidewalk for a second with the keys in my hand, feeling neighbors look out through their curtains. Mom opened the door with this brittle smile, like she still thought she could talk me out of it if she just said the right thing. You really went and rented a truck, she said. You are being so extreme. You have no idea how hard life is out there. I carried the first box right past her without answering. My mattress, my dresser drawers, the last of my clothes, the cheap lamp I actually liked, the things I had intentionally left behind so that they would notice when they disappeared. The whole time, the house felt oddly quiet. No music from FM speakers, no TV. Just the sound of my footsteps and the scrape of furniture on wood. At some point, I went into the kitchen and took a sheet of printer paper from the drawer. Sitting at the table where we had eaten 100 takeout dinners I paid for, I wrote at the top, in big letters, what Lauren has paid for in the last 12 months. Then I started listing rent. I handed my mom each month with the exact dollar amount. Electricity and gas I covered when she came up short. Wi-Fi and phone plan. Netflix, Hulu, Spotify. All the little subscriptions everyone used without thinking, groceries and delivery orders. Ethan's $600 creator course. The ring lights. The tripods. The must-have accessories. Ubers and Lyfts for mom when she did not feel safe taking the subway at night. For Ethan when he had job interviews or networking events. He never followed through. On dot next to each category, I wrote the total for the year, then drew a line at the bottom and added them up. 18,600 and change. I stared at that number for a long second. That was almost an entire year of rent at my new place. I grabbed a magnet and slapped the paper onto the front of the fridge where nobody could miss it. Mom walked in just as I stepped back. What is this? She asked, reaching for it. I moved faster and flattened my hand over the paper. You can read it, I said. You just cannot take it down. Ethan wandered in behind her, barefoot, yawning like it was any other Saturday. His eyes flicked to the truck outside and then to the paper. Mom's face went pale as she scanned the numbers. This is exaggerated, she muttered. You are making it sound worse than it is. Nobody asked you to do all this. I laughed under my breath. You did not have to ask every time you said, I am a little short this month, or can you just put it on your card and I will pay you back? That was you asking. You just never followed through on the second part. Ethan frowned when he saw his name. You did not have to write my stuff on there, he said. You are trying to embarrass me. I shook my head. No, I am trying to be clear. You both keep telling yourselves we are all struggling the same way. You are not. I put the pen down and looked at both of them. This is the last month I will ever pay for this house. Mom opened her mouth like she had something sharp to throw back, but nothing came out. Ethan just looked angry and uncomfortable, which honestly was the first time I had seen him feel anything besides entitlement in a while. I loaded the last box, then went upstairs one final time to check that I had not forgotten anything that mattered. My old room looked weirdly bare. The bed frame and a few random things would stay. I left them on purpose. I wanted there to be empty space where my life used to be. When I carried my pillow down the stairs, Mom was standing by the door, clutching the edge like she needed it to stay upright. Lauren, please, she said quietly, just think about this. We need you here. We cannot afford for you to just walk away. I paused, one hand on the doorknob. You should have thought about what you could and could not afford before you pushed me out of the room that paid for all of this, I said. I am not doing this to hurt you. I am doing this because staying here is killing me. She shook her head, eyes glassy. You are being dramatic. You will be back. You always come back. Maybe, I said. But if I do, it will not be as your paycheck. I stepped out, closed the door behind me, and climbed into the driver's seat of the U-Haul. As I pulled away from the curb, I saw them in the side mirror, standing on the stoop. Mom had her arms wrapped around herself, and Ethan kept glancing from the truck to the paper on the fridge through the kitchen window. For a second, guilt twisted in my chest like it old.